It's Sports by the Book at the South Point Studio. Here's Jeff Parles.
Welcome in. It's Sports by the Book, Week 18 in the National Football League. Happy to be with you. I'm Jeff Parles. Alex White is here. Heisman Trophy winner that doesn't have a Heisman Trophy anymore. Jersey today and Reggie Bush.
Yeah, I figured it might be my last opportunity to wear a Saints jersey.
I hope it is,
Plus,
personally.
I think we'll be okay. I think the Bucks take care of business and Packers sneak in there. But, you know, I've been betting on the Falcons a lot, so it might be a little bit anti-Falcons as well.
The Falcons. The bane of this show's existence
Right.
so far this year. So before we go into the games, let's throw up one of those playoff pictures going into. Let's throw up the NFC playoff picture going in here, with the way that it is right now. The Niners are the 1 seed. They have clinched it. They are good. They're in. They're not playing their guys today. Not playing McCaffrey. Not playing Purdy. Debo unlikely to suit up as well. They'll take on the Rams, who are also locked in as the 6. You see right now, tie in second. Again, the controversy at the end of the game in Dallas last week, probably going to cost Detroit the 2 seed. Cowboys huge favorites today against Washington. Detroit favorites against Minnesota. Probably going to see their starters for a half, maybe the whole game, because Detroit is at the early time slot. Dallas is in the late one. Philadelphia is in. Just a matter of can they hop Dallas? They would need a commander win, and the Eagles actually handle their own business for once against the Giants. The Bucks, we'll get to that game in a little bit. They just need to win. They win, doesn't matter what happens behind them. Gets a little complicated if they lose. They lose, then the winner of New Orleans and Atlanta would win the NFC South. Would be an 8-9 champion if it's Atlanta. New Orleans would find a way to go 9-8, with arguably the easiest schedule that any team has had in the NFL in a long time. Just a testament to how not good they are, that they haven't taken advantage of it. The Rams currently in the 6th slot at 9-7. If they win, they're good. They stay there. If they lose and the Packers win, the Rams would fall to 7 and the Packers would move to 6. Green Bay winning in. If you win, you're either getting to 6 or 7. You lose, you need a bunch of help behind you. You need Arizona upset Seattle, and you need the Falcons to beat the Saints. And you would also, in that scenario, need Detroit to beat Minnesota. So there you go.
Well
I think
done.
I got it all on the NFC side. The AFC side's not as hard with the wins by Pittsburgh and Houston yesterday. Houston is in. Indy is out. Pittsburgh is alive on that. Jacksonville, with a win today, wins the AFC South. If they lose, they're out. If they tie, they're out. So they need to win all the way through. If Jacksonville wins today, Buffalo needs to tie or beat Miami in order to get into the playoffs. A tie would give Miami the division. A Buffalo win would give Buffalo the division, regardless of what happens behind them. Miami needs to win or tie with all those injuries. On the AFC side, Baltimore in at 13-4. They're the 1. Kansas City at 10-6. They're clinched as the 3. Cleveland already locked in as wild card number 1 at 11-5, taking on Cincinnati. All right, I think we got it all.
Very good.
I think we got it. All right, let's start with the Saints and the Falcons. Let's get this out of the way quickly. Saints likely without Alvin Kamara today, which came down before the injury reports came through. And for New Orleans, again, both of these teams are still alive. And you know what? This is for Atlanta. We've talked about the Falcons all year long. Atlanta is 7-9. It looks like Heineke is going to be ready to go as well as for the Falcons. I misread my notes. It is Ritter today. Great. That's good for my Saints bet that I made earlier in the week on a money line parlay. So no Heineke, it's Ritter. Atlanta has lost this year to Arizona, Carolina. They got smacked by the Bears last week.
Yep.
Lost to the Commanders, and they lost to the Titans. So they've lost 4 games this year, not even including Chicago, who's also technically in the top 10 slot right now with their own draft pick. They've lost to 4 teams that right now would be picking in the top 7. And that's the reason they're here and not running away and maybe even trying to get up to the 2 seed in the NFC. New Orleans, Alex, I'm not a fan of this team either. But with Ritter in there today now,
Yep.
I don't mind laying the 3 with New Orleans. It's so gross, but I don't mind it now with Ritter starting instead of Heineke.
Well, I really say the Saints have taken care of business down the stretch when they needed to. I mean, they went into Tampa Bay last week, beat them 23-13. They've won 3 of their last 4 to be in this position. So I do like the Saints today. I did do money line like you on a parlay, but my favorite play, I did go under 42 here, and I really hope that doesn't hurt me like last week, because I went with the Falcons under last week, and they gave up 37 points to the Bears, but I think they'll be ready for this one, especially they know each other very well. It's a division rivalry here. And the coordinator, Ryan Nielsen, he was the co-defensive coordinator for the Saints last year. So he'll have his unit ready to go. They did lose to the Saints in the first matchup as well. So I'm depending on the Falcons defense, if nothing else. When you think of both of these teams, you know they both bend but don't break. So expecting some punts and field goals in this one.
Saints were much better last week. I'll give them that. It was an elimination spot. If they lose in Tampa, they were done. They played well. I would argue they played their second best game of the year last week against Tampa Bay. The only game that they were better than against a non-cellar dweller was that game against Indianapolis. I know they beat New England 34-0, but that was in the middle of the Patriots just being an abject mess. But I got to give the Saints credit for actually showing last week. And look, if they win, they're 9-8. They would just need either Tampa to lose or Green Bay to lose in that scenario. They would be much more live than Atlanta, whose only path is to get in through a division championship, which would mean the Bucs would have to lose later in the day. All right, let's go to the Battle of Ohio. Nothing to play for here on either side. Cincinnati is locked into last place in the AFC North, which is pretty darn good for next year. For the Bengals, they're going to get a last place schedule, and that's a pretty good thing for them with getting Joe Burrow back. Today, Jake Browning will start. Most of the Bengals guys are in today. The Browns, no Joe Flacco. He rests. How about that? Joe Flacco gets to rest to get ready for the playoffs. Myles Garrett's not going to play as well for Cleveland. Expected to see the guys who are active, who are key players, play for a little bit in the game and then sit most of the second half. Cleveland is a 7-point underdog in this one. Total's 37. I actually don't mind the Bengals here with all the absences on the Cleveland side. It opened 5, got as high as 8 earlier this morning, and now sitting at 7 an hour before game time.
I like the Bengals too, but I went a different way. I took Bengals team total over 20.5. It's now 21.5. I still like that. They averaged 23 points a game at home this season. 4 of their last 5, they've gone over 21.5. Those being at home. So Vikings, they scored 27, Colts 34, lost to the Steelers, so that one they did not. Texans, they scored 30, and Bills 24. And that is kind of a little bit of mixture with Joe Burrow and Jake Browning. But I think Jake Browning has done very well. His median pass completion is 68%. He's averaged 254 yards per game. And then Jamar Chase, if he does play, which the reports say he is, he's already talking about his contract and what they're going to do next year. So he's still proving himself. I think they come out there, take advantage of the absences on the Brown side, and we know how much these two hate each other as well.
Yeah, and again, week 1, very different scenario at that point. Now is kind of the telltale sign that this may be a different year for the Bengals, even if Burrow stayed healthy. Of course, that was a 24-3 game. Cleveland destroyed the Bengals, and quite frankly, it wasn't even that close in a 21-point win week 1. Again, Coach of the Year real quick, because Stefanski against Ryans at this point are really the only two candidates. Depending on the book, one prominent national book made Ryans the favorite this morning. Another one shortened Ryans, but still had Stefanski as the favorite. I don't think last night is relevant to me at this point. I think Stefanski's already won the award, at least to me. I can get why this might be a close race, because Coach of the Year, you can look at it both ways. You wanted to take a plus price on Ryans now, I guess you could. I don't know if I would. It all depends on, do you take the team that had the low expectations and exceeded them by 3.5 wins in the win total market and take the rookie head coach and Ryans? Or do you take the coach that's dealing with 5 starting quarterbacks this year and still found a way to get the top wild card in the AFC?
It is amazing. And I said yesterday that I wasn't very high on how do you say
Stefanski.
Stefanski, but I agree with you. I do think that, going through all of that and having 5 different quarterbacks and still succeeding, still finding ways to win in that defense, we just keep talking about them. But we'll see. We'll see at the end here who wins this.
We'll be quick on this game. Jets in New England. The weather's awful. It may not be as bad as we thought, at least at kick, but it's going to get progressively worse throughout the game. Alex, the total is now the lowest total in the NFL, and it's the lowest total in over 30 years in the NFL. 28.5.
Wow.
Down from 32. It's New England 2 now. So here's the weather throughout the game today real quick. Right now it's 35 degrees in a wintry mix. Okay? As the game goes, it's going to flip to snow, and the winds are a consistent 15 miles an hour. The only thing I will say is we're now getting to the point where we're talking an Iowa-like total here already to begin with. But all this takes with these quarterbacks is Trevor Siemian and Bailey Zappi against two good defenses. All this takes is a fumble recovered at inside the 15-yard line. All this takes is Siemian throwing a pick six. Like, you're getting to the point now where you can't have anything go wrong for you with the defenses or special teams setting up touchdowns, and that would put you in a little bit of hurt. I'm not touching that total. I do like New England outright for what it's worth. Belichick's more likely than not final game in Foxborough will be very interesting, assuming if it is the end for him with New England, where they go in their head coaching search. Josh McDaniels, by the way, in attendance today. By the way,
Very interesting.
In Foxborough. But, Alex, I like New England outright. I did take a shorter money line price earlier.
Now, I don't know this trend, but the Patriots
15 straight.
15 straight against the Jets.
15 straight against the Jets.
So I went under 30.5. I wouldn't chase it here at this number, but when I made my numbers, I made it 30.5. So I asked my dad with this weather and the wind. He said take a whole touchdown off of it. So I felt comfortable at that point. I don't know about the 28.5, like you're saying. Anything could happen here, but yeah, not a great game. So
not a good one. I can tell you that. Both of these teams are done. Both playing for draft position. New England already clinching last place in the AFC East. The Jets, a miserable year anyway you slice it at 6-10. A loss for New York clinches at worst a top 8 pick. For the Patriots, a loss more likely than not will keep them at 3. Washington is a big underdog today against Dallas, and I don't think the strength of schedule will move enough in order to move New England up to 2 over Washington. Of course, the Bears already clinched the number 1 pick thanks to the Bryce Young trade. They have Carolina's pick here with the Bears, their own pick at number 10. All right, AFC South on the line in Nashville. Also, the reports this morning from NFL Network, Tom Pelissero and Ian Rappaport, saying that this could be the end for Mike Vrabel in Tennessee, and it's not because that Tennessee doesn't want him there. It may just be a mutual parting of the ways where both parties just decide to move on. Vrabel, to me, would be the candidate that I would look at if I were Robert Kraft in New England, if he were to become available, and even if it didn't, trade a draft pick or two. Jacksonville will have Trevor Lawrence today after missing his first career game last week due to injury. Alex, it's 3.5 right now. There's some 3.5 even in the market right now, so people are pouring it on with Tennessee.
yes.
Ryan Tannehill is starting for the Titans. Would be shocked if it's not Derrick Henry's last game in the Titan uniform as well. This was as high as 5.5 earlier in the week. Total 41.5. I'm curious where you're going because I have an idea, but I want to hear what you have to say first.
So I did take the 5.5 with the Titans here. I mean, the Jags have just been a mess down the stretch here. They were looking really good going into week 12. They were 8-3 on the year. Then they lost 4 in a row, and now they are fighting to win that division today, which what would the Titans like to do more than anything? Knock them out of the playoffs like the Jags did to them last year in this spot. Also, Mike Vrabel, you just brought him up, 24-12-2 ATS as an underdog of 3 or more points. So I went ahead and grabbed the points here. It does make me a little nervous because there were 15 names on Wednesday's injury report for Tennessee. But
yes, it's a long one.
I think we're going to get their best effort. And like you said, Derrick Henry's probably last game there.
I am not touching this game from a side perspective. The total feels too high. This feels like this is going to be a grinded out. Trevor Lawrence is not 100% even with missing a week. I know you missed the best of it because you could have had 42.5 last night. And I think that was a great number to have bopped it under. And it's gotten progressively bopped under even since the show has begun, down to the 41.5 right now. But I still feel it's too high. And last year you saw in this game, now granted, it was Josh Dobbs instead of Ryan Tannehill, which who knows, maybe this version of Ryan Tannehill is the same as last year's Josh Dobbs. But Jacksonville really struggled to move the ball in that game. And I know there was more on the line. Tennessee was playing for a division title as well that night in Duval. But the way that Jacksonville's looked against NFL teams the last 6 weeks, not counting last week because that's not an NFL team in Carolina right now, they've looked awful. I would look to the under. That would be the way I'd look to play this game. I don't like taking the worst of it on the Tennessee side, but if this looks like it's going to be a rock fight, struggle to score points, I might hop in on Tennessee in game, even if it happens to be this 3.5 right now, because it's a different handicap at that point.
I like it. I'm with you on the under. When I was looking earlier this week, it was 40.5, so it's kind of jumped everywhere. Mad at myself. I should have went under 42.5 when I did see that yesterday, but you make great points, and Jacksonville really has struggled offensively, so I think 41.5 is a good number still to go under.
Let's go to Detroit, Minnesota, and the Lions. Market is sure treating it like the Lions are going to play their guys the whole way now with the way that this number has moved. Even though I would argue that if it was certain that the Lions were going to play their guys the whole way, this would be closer to 6 right now with Nick Mullins getting the start for Minnesota after the failed Jaron Hall half experiment last week on Sunday night. It's 4. It's up from 3.5 yesterday. It was as high as 5.5. Total's also been ballooned to 47.5. That makes sense because I will say this. If you can find a multi-interception Nick Mullins prop, I would play it because you know he's going to attempt to sling it. The over a half interception is close to $2 in most places, which makes sense. But I would look to that today if we're going to play this game. But I'm going to stay off of the traditional side of stuff.
So a couple trends here. Vikings are 5-0-3 ATS on the road this year. Last 3 games, though, 0-2-1 ATS. Lions 4-3 against the spread at home, 3-0 in their last 3. So I like how the Lions are playing here. And because of that controversial call, they don't have the 2 seed right now. Playing all their guys, they're going to come out here hard. I did lay the 3.5 with the Lions for today.
All right, let's keep it moving here. Let's go to Carolina and Tampa, the last of the early games. Again, 6 early games, 7 late games today. Usually the case that these games get stacked up in the afternoon, at least West Coast time, in Week 18. And this is for the NFC South Championship. Tampa Bay, who I thought was going to be one of the worst teams in the league this year, had a chance to clinch it last week. They get beaten at home by 10 by New Orleans. Now, the gift of all gifts for Tampa. They get the worst team in the NFL. Yeah, it's a road game. Yeah, the last time these two teams played, Carolina actually played a reasonable game in that one.
They did.
Tampa won by 3, 21-18. They were all host of injuries on Tampa's defense going into that game that I think played a role in that one. 4.5, 37 behind us, which is the market high in the total. It's mostly 36.5 now.
I like Tampa Bay here. I laid the 4 with the Bucks. Before that loss last week, they were on a nice winning streak, won 3 in a row. You mentioned it. Now they get to take on the Panthers. So I think they get the job done here and cover that number.
I wish this number was shorter. If we get to 4, I probably will hop in on Tampa. This was as high as 6 in some spots at the beginning of the week. I thought that was a little aggressive. Now, after what we saw last week, though, from Carolina, where they got the win against Atlanta a few weeks ago, they played a competent game against Green Bay. They probably should have won that game, actually, but the way it ended up playing it out, losing 33-30. And then last week was as pathetic as it gets. Legitimately, 2 yards of play against Jacksonville, who has no defense. And then Tepper's throwing a drink on Jacksonville. Like, again, just an embarrassment with Carolina. With that said, they can't tank. They already lost a draft pick. It's already going to Chicago. See if Bryce Young can at least end the season on a positive. Not touching it at the current number, but we're going to see if we can get a 4 on this one. All right, to the late games. The AFC West games are up first. Now, we'll start in L.A. Blaine Gabbert, Easton Stick. You ready for it?
I'm ready.
You ready? That the game of the year, the quarterback matchup of the year on Stick and Gabbert. 3 right now. Chargers favored 35. The total. I'm not bothering here. I just not. I can see the argument if you just wanted to take KC when it was 3.5.
Right.
I get it. Take a number. Both of these teams are honestly pretty even with all the backups in. Easton Stick and Gabbard are probably the same ability at this point, but I'm not touching it at a flat 3 now.
I'm with you. It's just too many unknowns here, and the Chiefs haven't even been their Kansas City team that we've known. So now with just their backups, I wanted to make a case to take the points with them, but I couldn't get there either.
Can't do it. Can't do it. Even though I will say, if Kansas City looks okay on offense with Gabbard against this Charger team, then maybe I'll hop in on Kansas City.
Yeah.
That would be the only way I'd look to play it. All right, just down the road from us, hey, the Raiders are getting bed in the market. Raiders, 3-point favorites in this one against the Broncos. This has been a toggler all week, 2.5, 3, 2.5, 3, 2.5, 3, 2.5, 3. Behind us, total 37. I actually bet the Raiders at 2.5. I actually didn't. I know some will say, oh, there's no motivation. It's a meaningless game. I do think you can't look at it from the outside perspective. I think there's a distinct possibility, and I don't know if this is the correct football from the football sense, but I do think that if the Raiders end up finishing second, which would happen if they win today, they would finish second in the AFC West. I do think that would carry some weight in Mark Davis's decision-making for who the permanent head coach is. And these players want to play for Antonio Pierce permanently. Devontae Adams said as much earlier in the week. Broncos, who knows what that locker room looks like right now. Jarrett Stidham gets a second start. Hey, it's a revenge game for Stidham.
It is. It is.
But I do like the Raiders. I like 2.5. I don't mind it at 3, but it was obviously way better at 2.5 than 3.
I don't have stats, trends, or much to back me on this, but
Okay.
I went over, and I went over
Okay.
38. Yes, and mostly
Wow.
because it is a meaningless game. I think defense is going to be pretty optional, and I think, like you said, Stidham, revenge game, coming back to Vegas, and the Raiders, they've put up at least 20 points in their last 3, so I think they want to see that continue. We saw them at home. The last time they were at home, they put up 63 on the Chargers. So over for me in this one.
I did not expect that. Really did not expect that one at all. All right, Alex on the over. I'm on the Raiders on this spot. By the way, the big Survivor contest, there's 4 left. 2 took Cincinnati, 2 took the Raiders.
I think I like Cincinnati better.
I have no idea.
Yeah.
I actually would have taken New England if I was alive still, personally. I would have taken the Patriots. It would have been a little bit of fortitude, but last game for Belichick in New England.
Yeah.
The Jets are an abject mess. The problem with that is the weather could really just throw that game into a total tailspin, and we could get a 3-3 tie. Who wouldn't love a 3-3 tie to end the year?
That's right. Well,
Actually, wait a second. That would mean Ryland has to make a kick in inclement weather, so maybe not. All right. This game is intriguing for a boatload of reasons here. Seattle and Arizona. There were reports earlier this morning from NFL Network that Pete Carroll could retire if this ends on a sour note here today. The Cardinals are playing pretty well. Again, they're normal, mediocre football team. They were not this historically bad mess that we thought would happen. With Kyler Murray, I actually think they've been actually a good football team at times with Murray back. The market agrees with the assessment because it's 2.5. Down to 2.5 behind us. There's some 3 even in the market on Seattle right now. Total 47.5. This has been a toggler all week behind us again from 3, 2.5, 3, 2.5. I like Arizona outright, personally. Right now, $1.20. You can get about $1.25 at some other shops.
remind us what the Seahawks need.
Seattle just needs to. Seattle's pretty simplistic. They need to win, and Chicago needs to win.
Okay, because they need to get the Packers out.
2 things. Two leg parlay. Seahawks and Bears. Gets Seattle into the playoffs. Also, a Green Bay Chicago tie coupled with a Seattle win would get it done as well. Can't be banking on that second one. But the easiest one is Bears Seahawks moneyline parlay gets the Seahawks.
So I really just took some running back props in this one. I like both RB1s. Kenneth Walker over 12.5 carries. His median on the season is 16.5. And Arizona allowing the most rushing yards in the league at 143.5 per game. On the flip side, Seattle has been really bad against the run since week 12. They've allowed 5 yards per carry, 30th in the league. They've allowed 160 rushing yards or more in 3 straight and 4 of their last 5. So Of course, we know we got James Conner on the flip side, who's been playing very well for the Cardinals. I didn't really like his yards or his carries because his median was actually lower than what they have out there. But I did do a little anytime touchdown for James Conner.
That makes sense. If you're going to take a shot, I know Frank was talking up Tyler Lockett this week
Yes, he was.
on anytime touchdowns. I actually agree with your running back assessment here. I think this is a big game for both running backs. Also, if you can get Michael Carter's a little bit of a tricky one because usually those second-tier running backs don't get listed at fair numbers. If you can get a fair number on Carter rushing yards, I don't mind that either. Again, I don't think the Seattle team's any good. I really, really don't. I think they played over their heads for a good chunk of this year. I think they're going to lose, and I think they're going to be done today, and it's going to be a very difficult offseason, especially if Pete retires. Because I don't know who your quarterback is week 1 next year. I don't think it should be Geno personally, and that defense needs a facelift. So it'll be a whole lot of things to look at going in the next year. All right, the big one in Green Bay. Let's go there. Packers and the Bears. It's 3 behind us. It's the only flat 3 left. The rest of the market right now is either 3 even. Or I always love this type of straddle. 2.5 minus a quarter on Green Bay. Always love when that's the case. 46 the total. What are you doing here?
So I didn't do anything. I want to hear what you have to say.
Oh, that's good. Punting it back.
Put it on you. I will say I was looking at the Bears over 20.5 because what they have done in the last month is just very impressive. Put up 37 on the Falcons, 27 on the Cardinals, just 17 against Cleveland. But if they would have got that Hail Mary, they would have went over that 20.5. And the week before that, 28 on their division rival, the Lions. So they've been really good. They're playing their best football. I want to make a case, take the Bears plus the points or even their team total, but I don't know what we're getting from the Packers here today.
I would go to I would consider an array of things in this game, actually. I like both team totals over, which means I like the over. So
don't mind that.
I'm going square on that, but the way these offenses have played, coupled with the fact that Green Bay's defense, other than last week, has really been awful the last month. This screams game in the mid to high 50s, especially with how good Chicago's offenses look. And can't discredit Jordan Love. Jordan Love's played very well.
Yes.
Even though Green Bay's defense has let him down in a few spots. I do like Green Bay to win the game.
Okay.
I do like the Packers. Now, I'm not overly confident. This is the exact same situation a year ago where red-hot division rival comes to Lambeau with the Packers needing a win to get in and the Packers lose outright. I think this Green Bay team is better than the team it was a year ago. I also think Detroit, by the end of last year, was better than what the Chicago team is. Not by much, but I think the big difference is Detroit better coached last year and obviously going into this year than Chicago is. And I think that does play a difference in this game. Part of the reason I like the Packers, I missed the 2.5s, so the flat 2.5, so we'll see maybe Chris and company will come with a flat 2.5 in a little bit. But that would be what I would do. Let it come back to 2.5, lay the 2.5 with Green Bay, and then I like this game to be high scoring both sides. So
I do too.
Team totals over, regular over. I think they're all fine here, which probably means we're getting 16-13.
I don't know. Not with the way the Bears offense has been playing. So
they've been great, and we've talked about it with Vinny, where they have a huge decision on their hands moving forward. Like, what are you going to do? Do you bring back Justin Fields? You give him the full-time contract? Do you just go, hey, we're going to basically put you in a Kirk Cousins purgatory of we're going to give you the fifth-year option, then we're going to go tag, and then we're going to push the can down the road years? So be interesting to see as we go along. All right, we'll take a quick break. We get back. Vinny Magliulo is here, and also looks like our guy Jimmy has made it as well in the studio. We'll be back with more Sports by the Book, South Point Studio.
If you're celebrating a special occasion or just love fine dining, you're in the right place. Come experience the crown jewel of South Point restaurants, Michael's Gourmet Room.
Welcome.
With over 600 different types of wines and magnificent dishes prepared tableside, you'll revel in the rich classic Vegas decor and the best black tie service in the world. This intimate gourmet room has earned accolades galore. Come to Michael's Gourmet Room for an unforgettable dining experience. Another famous restaurant is the Silverado Steakhouse, where you'll find the charm and service that discerning patrons require. From top quality steaks and chops to fresh seafood and desserts, you'll love the award-winning wine list and menu at Silverado Steakhouse. Steak lovers have even more options with primarily prime rib. Catering to hearty appetites, the menu features a variety of flavorful prime rib cuts, dry aged to ensure tenderness, and then seasoned and slowly roasted. Although prime rib is our specialty, it's not the only thing on the menu. There's something for everyone. And if you're craving a taste of Italy, come experience delicious Italian cuisine and the attentive service at Don Vito's. Our culinary team starts with the freshest ingredients and transforms them into traditional favorites. And don't forget Italian desserts. Don Vito's. Savor the taste of Italy. Finally, if sushi is more your style, join us at the popular Zenshin Asian restaurant and sushi bar, where we're serving up the freshest sashimi, nigiri, and sushi rolls. And beyond the sushi, an exciting contemporary Asian cuisine menu. Plus a variety of specialty drinks, Japanese and domestic beer, wine, and sake. Balance your hunger with Zenshin.
Welcome back in. It's Sports by the Book here at the South Point Studio. I'm Jeff Parles. Alex White's here. Vinny Magliulo's here. And he brought a special guest with him today.
Did. Surprise.
Our guy, Jimmy Viaro, in the building.
I just rather say hello to her.
That's fine. That's fine.
Can you blame me?
People don't like saying hello to me anyway.
Well,
Who does?
Sean just did it. Look at Sean. Look at the company man, Sean, back there.
Fan favorites, though, these two and
Oh,
Chris.
yeah, well,
Everyone loves when they come in.
Absolutely.
I
Join our
bullied my
show.
way in here because, as I said, every year at the last regular season game, I just shake my head because the people make the same mistake. Okay. We know that, like, with these way that the things are, a game might be picked, and then 20 minutes later it might be 9 because this guy's not playing, this guy is playing, they're doing all this thing. But let me tell you out there, don't think you're going to get rich doing it. The people who actually even have a chance to do it is like, and betting a lot of money at, okay, you want to lay the one, but you want to lay it for $20,000, not $85, so it's not worth your time. Then what these people do at the end of the week, and the racket that they understand is simply, when to buy back and whatever, because now you can, A, get off the game, B, change the side you want, or the most important thing is you got 5 points going on a $40,000 middle now. And so these people will be different. As you can see, there hasn't been any late big games because that type of stuff is done early in the week because you can't, once the capture is done. And the other people, they're the same type of people. They look for the parlay cards also. So you have a ties win parlay card and it's 3. And then then you go in there and you use 200 or 300, just using that one game as your key game, and obviously put yourself in a bad spot. But what will happen is simply it's a free roll for them. The biggest pain in the ass that we got is stuff like the parlay cards, because you can cut the other stuff, the limits down. You can do a lot of different things. But the parlay card is a static number. It's there. You can't get it off. So if you utilize your parlay cards and you take the +3, which basically you're taking 3.5, and then the game switches, now it's 3 the other way, you're in real good shape. And even though it only falls one day a year, you got to do stuff like that to even give yourself a chance. If you think you want to do it for $40, just go get a job in the morning. You'll be better off, and I'm done.
Jimmy, always a pleasure.
Okay, guys.
Wait. Can't wait for week 19.
Hey, we're getting that at some point, Vinny.
I
You know
think so.
that.
Where you go?
Oh, Jimmy Viaro, everyone.
You gotta love him.
The
right.
best there is.
Yeah,
The best there is.
Listen. To summarize it, right? It's a guessing game all week in many regards as to who's playing and who's not, and in some it's pretty certain, right? Some teams will come out right away, or you can actually formulate it too. But you want to stay on top of it, and if you do bet early, like Alex, if you look at you, for instance, your style of play, you're going to look at openers, you're going to follow line movement all week. You may play early. This is a week that you may say, you know what? I changed my mind. I'm going to get off it because of what's happening. And when you look at these games, half the card is we're going to hope to avoid a 3 on the part of the favorites. I mean, that's half the card. Think about that.
Oh, you sure about that?
I mean, yeah.
I thought it was legitimately this week. I'm not being facetious here. At one point or another, Vinny.
Including if you include yesterday.
If you included yesterday.
Yeah.
If you included yesterday.
Right.
More than half of your I think it was 10 of 16 were either toggling between 2.5 and 3, 3.5 and 3, or 3.5 and 4.
Well, if you had the 4, yeah. So
and then the Eagles and Giants have toggled between 5.5 and 6.
Yeah. So I mean, you have that element there, and if it happens, so the odds are pretty good that something's probably going to fall that way, and if it does, it does. You just have to book them. You'll see a lot quicker line movement. You'll see. I don't want to say that you'll see the same line movement that you would in a preseason, but it's not unusual for numbers to move. If there's just a steamroll on a 4 instead of going to 4.5, you may go right to 5. Not a whole lot of difference between 4.5 and 5. And then if they take the 5, you can come back halfway or whatever the case may be. But much quicker line movement. Again, you look at those. By the way, six early games today, 7 late. I mean, the rest of the season, it's always.
But they do this every year, though.
Well, they do it because the teams that are they're and one thing that the league did get right is that teams with playoff implications, right? They should be playing at the same time.
Yeah.
Because as Jimmy, when he was in here, and Chris and I, when we were in on Friday, talked about it. There was a time when we had to learn that you have to take off the afternoon or many of the afternoon games because of what was transpiring in the early games. So, but you know what? All that said, a good day. People find something to bet. It's and there are some games that today are going to be pretty exciting and that everybody's going to get involved with, particularly tonight's primetime game between the Bills and the Dolphins.
Yesterday's were pretty good. Both games. I think both of those road teams were pretty lucky, though. Pretty fortunate.
Well, with Pittsburgh, kind of what their whole season's been, where they look mediocre on offense most of the game. And one big play was enough.
Yep.
I mean, the big play to Johnson that's all they needed in that game.
Well, they were able to run the ball too, right? Yeah,
at least early in the game.
Yeah, I mean, that's so.
And I mean, if Baltimore plays their guys that game, Baltimore wins for sure. The way that game played out,
pretty convincing.
And I would say Baltimore probably wins by, like Vinny said, in convincing fashion if they're playing their guys.
Well, they would if they would have played their guys, it wouldn't have been a dog either. I mean,
they would have been what? They would have been 6. They would have been 6.5, 7 at home.
No question.
Maybe even probably more actually. Probably close, pushing. Oh, probably would have been north of a touchdown, right?
Maybe a touchdown. Yeah.
And in the late game, look, I thought the game was even. Personally, last night, I thought it was a dead even game. I thought Houston was slightly better. And that's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
In that game last night.
They almost shot themselves in the foot though with their penalty. I mean, the penalties.
PAT almost bit them in the behind.
Yes, it did.
The penalties, both offensively and defensively, at the line, really almost cost them. But all that said, those 2 games set up this morning, and then this morning will set up this afternoon. Chris and I were just chatting back there too, and the biggest decisions so far today. I'd say the biggest needs right now. I don't think it'll surprise anybody. Well, maybe this one might. Seattle. This game here, there's a lot of support for the Cardinals, even on the money line now.
They have my support as well, Vinny.
Yeah, maybe it's not really a shock. I could see it. I mean, when you look at the game, the way it's it did open 3, and again, it's gone back and forth between 3 and 2.5. But there's more exposure with the Cardinals there. Denver's another one, which not really a surprise here, right? Raider support for the majority of the season, and certainly a lot of support here. And I think the school of thought there is that besides being fans, I think the players they're playing for their coach,
right.
And I think they want him to be the coach. So and not so much on the other side. I wonder even though it's his first year, I don't get the same sense of support for the coach in Denver and Sean Payton there, and then Minnesota, which is kind of interesting, right? That the Lions and I think Dan Campbell's kept it pretty close to the vest, right? His sentiment about playing the regulars, I can't imagine him playing the regulars for the entire game. It's too risky.
It's an interesting case for Detroit because they're the one team that technically is still playing for something because they could hypothetically move to the 2.
Positioning,
They could move to the 2 with some help today, but the Eagles and the Cowboys both play later. It's an interesting case where, again, I personally, we talked about this earlier in the week. Detroit's going to start with their guys. This may be one of those where you just hit the first half on Detroit.
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
And then come the other way in the second half. Yeah, I mean, also, like, if Detroit's up 2 scores at halftime, I would probably be coming the other way with Minnesota anyway, even if it was a normal
I think you're going to
circumstance.
see a lot of that today, or more of it today, where, let's say, I mean, if you're looking at Detroit, Detroit in the first half, 2.5, maybe even 3 in some spots, because I think there's a real belief and a stronger possibility that their regulars are going to go for the first half, and then see if what that, if they're up convincingly, then maybe you go with the Vikings in the second half. So I think we'll see some more of that today than in a normal week.
Let's go to the Sunday night game here, Vinny.
Yeah.
We'll touch the other games that are going early a little bit later. Miami, Buffalo, you're at 3. It's 48.5.
Yep.
There is a cavalcade of injuries on the Miami side.
Oof, yeah.
Wrong time for that, but it's offensive line injuries, defensive line injuries, just everywhere. Jalen Waddle's not going to play either.
Been a rough month.
They were relatively healthy the whole year, and then Tyreek Hill got hurt on that Monday night against Tennessee, and it's just been a barrage since then. Buffalo is playing better, even though last week I think they're kind of lucky to win that game against New England.
Yeah.
Where New England handed them 4 turnovers and Buffalo cashed them all in the first half. This is one of your togglers. It's been one of your togglers the whole week. 2.5, 3, 2.5, 3. I think personally, I think the 3 is more correct than the 2.5.
Well, I think what will impact this too, by the way, laying 2.5 and taking 3, to your point, Jeff, and the total really hasn't moved that much between 41 and 42, 42.5, but the Bills, we know, and we've chronicled their injuries this year, but theirs have been for basically the entire season, or since the first few weeks of the season. They have managed it and done they're used to it, frankly. I mean, and they've done a terrific job, particularly in the last month, to put themselves in this position. Which, by the way, too, they could miss the playoffs with 10 wins. But what's going to impact this number too is what happens today in terms of carryover going to this game. I can tell you right now, we're probably not going to be in the best position either way in this game. There's going to be exposure to probably both sides and certainly the 3. But I would say it's dependent on how the day goes. I think they'll and it'll be the as I refer to it as the G game, either the get out or the gravy game for the day. There'll be a lot of support, and I think based on your point, Jeff, that there's going to be more support for the Bills as we get closer to kickoff this evening, given the Dolphins' injuries, Alex.
I haven't done anything yet with the side because I did make this game a pick-em with the Dolphins being at home, but with the injuries and factoring that in, I do think that number is just right. I did do one play, though. I am on Bills under 26.5 for their team total because I do think we're going to see Miami's defense step up, especially after giving up 56 to the Ravens last week. And then, of course, we know they gave up 48 to the Bills in their first game. So I expect a big performance from their defense. And, I mean, the Bills offensively haven't done anything spectacular. You just mentioned it against the Patriots the week before against the Chargers. So on the road, they've only gone over this 26.5 once in their last 5 road games.
Well, you got a good number at under 26.5. I mean, it's 25 and 25.5 out there. So
Miami's only home loss to Tennessee in December is the only reason this game means
being up 2 touchdowns.
anything
by
for
the way,
Miami,
in the
where
second
Miami
half.
would be. They won that game, they would have been locked already. They would have been locked in. This would have been the 2 seed. Buffalo would have been playing to get in, and
Yeah.
it probably would have been a different Sunday. It probably would have been the game we saw last night on Sunday night instead of this one. I just, with the way this has gone for Miami, they still haven't beaten a good team yet, other than Dallas. And that was more Dallas beating themselves more than Miami beating Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
And we saw this matchup in week 4 when Miami was guns a-blazing, looking as good as anyone, and Buffalo destroyed them. And that was when Buffalo wasn't playing well.
In Buffalo, yeah.
In Buffalo. But I just have I didn't bet this game because the way this season has gone for Buffalo, it seems like every time they've turned the corner, they've come crashing back to earth for no apparent reason other than them hurting themselves.
Well,
And-
except for the last month, right? I mean, when you
Well,
think about it, right?
look, they've handled their business.
Yeah.
They've handled their business. They destroyed the Cowboys. But you look at the last 2 weeks,
Escaped.
The Chargers were even the whole game and arguably better for the majority of the game.
Could have won that game.
And
right, the
last
Chargers.
week, New England was better other than the turnovers.
Yeah.
So I just wonder with Buffalo, where yes, they're.
Sure.
I understand why they're a top 5 power rated team. They probably should be with the way the league is, but there's a reason that they are not the 2 seed already in the AFC and need to win this game to possibly even just get in the dance. It's because they've been a wildly inconsistent bunch the whole year. Now, I don't think Miami is the team to take advantage of it in their current state, but
No.
Buffalo in this era has lost to bad teams and teams much worse than Miami in spots where they needed to have it.
Yeah. Well, again, this is certainly going to be the game of the day, and that's not a stretch. I mean,
No, not at all.
For a variety of reasons, and like I said, everything will be carrying to it. And you had 2 games yesterday to kind of jumpstart today.
So before we let you go back
Yeah.
to work, because you mentioned jump starting with yesterday,
Yeah.
all of them go into today, but not just today.
Mhm.
It's all going to tomorrow.
Oh,
as well.
tomorrow and tomorrow's game with Washington and Michigan. Just again, it'll be as big a carryover, or even more, and more so in many cases, of any NFL Monday night game. And again, two good teams that have really earned their way to the title game tomorrow. So there's 4.5 out there on Michigan. 56 and a half. And so there'll be a lot of carryover to that game, and that number will get impacted by what happens today. So, like I said, we booked those tomorrow's game, just like the 2 semifinals, like NFL playoff games, and the folks have bet them and responded to them. You'll see a whole list of props and everything going to it. The in-game will be very popular tomorrow. So first half, second half. Yeah, it'll be a good. You have a side tomorrow, Alex? Or is it too early to?
Too early.
Okay.
We're teasing it all weekend. Right?
Okay.
But I am curious about that total. It just keeps moving up, huh?
Yeah, and I think
Has there been buyback?
not too much actually. Again, it opened 56 up to 50. It did go down initially
Okay.
a little bit. But listen, give me either favorite and over or dog and over. The folks are gonna cheer for points in that game, especially after what we saw with Michael Penix last week.
Yep.
I'm just ready for the game, personally. I mean,
Well, let's get through today.
no, well, I mean, yes, let's get through today, of
right?
course, but
Get through tonight?
I'm just fascinated to see how that one plays out tomorrow night, because it doesn't matter the result. Jim Harbaugh is not going to be the coach of Michigan next year. He's going to the NFL.
You think so?
I would be stunned if he's not coaching an NFL team next year. Be stunned.
Yeah, I
And
would
for-
say that's a pretty likely.
And for
scenario,
Washington,
yeah.
I mean, this is a team that, even though they're 14-0, a team that even the betting markets have doubted the whole year. I mean, we talked about it. They're going to end the season. 4 out of their last 5 games, they're going to be underdogs.
Underdogs, yeah.
And they might win a national championship.
Yeah.
That's unprecedented in this era.
No question that there's, but it's also a byproduct of who they've played.
Sure. The
You know,
league,
I
look,
mean,
the Pac-12 was
and
awesome
so-
this year.
but the numbers, though, when you look at it, the teams, the Texases of the world, the Oregons, they were just power rated higher. I mean, and look, some people say, listen, well, you guys got it wrong. Well, the reality is, again, I'll go back to the Pac-12 title game. They were laying 10.
No, yeah.
It's not just about, again, we're not in the prediction business, okay? We leave that to the folks on the other side of the counter. So
I thought you were going to say leave it to the folks on the other side of the glass.
Well, they are. Well, that's the other side of the counter as well. There's this counter.
Sean's been a very busy
I've got multiple
man
counters. I've got this counter and the other one, which I'm headed back to.
Yeah, but it should be awesome tomorrow. And
I
again,
will. It'll be a great day.
There are going to be a lot of Miami and Washington parlays on the dogs. I can tell you that right now.
Wait, is kickoff 4? Right
Tomorrow?
when we get done with our show?
Tomorrow, 4:45.
4:45.
At least that's what they listed at.
Yeah.
Vinny, can we get a booth for our crew?
You need seats?
South Point Studio? Can we get some
You don't want to
seats?
sit in the back with us and watch us
We don't want to
be as
subject
entertaining
Frank,
as
in all honesty.
Oh, Frank is going to be there too?
Yeah.
Well, first of all, we know he's going to have the over.
Yeah.
So you need a booth? We'll make sure you have seats back there.
You like how I did that on air and just
on
put
air?
you
You
Put the pressure on.
I thought you were just going to sit in here in your
that's not a
in
bad
the
idea.
cocoon, right?
Could do that. Well, we'll definitely be in here today.
You could do that. How about this? They're talk about pro. You can do that and do the in game. How about that?
I already have my phone ready.
Just saying.
You mean like
Somewhere
YouTube,
Ann
so
Goldstone
other
is
people
saying,
can
"What the
watch?"
hell's he doing to my schedule?"
Oh man, Vinny, pleasure as always. I'll let you go back to work.
All right.
Thank you, Vinny.
Enjoy today.
All right, let's Alex. We got three to get to, the 2 NFC East games, and then Carson Wentz versus Sam Darnold, as we all expected. Giants and Eagles, 5 now behind us. It's 5 in the whole market, 43 the total on this game.
Wow.
This was pivoting between 5.5 and 6 earlier in the week, but it's been all action on Big Blue. I think the market is playing this correctly. I like the Giants outright, personally. And I would not be surprised if Philadelphia, and Sirianni kind of brought this up a little bit earlier in the week, if Dallas gets out to a lead in Washington, if I'm the Eagles, I'm pulling the plug. Just saying, all right, Marcus and Mariota, a lot of Boston Scott, backup wide receiver, so we might see a bunch of Julio Jones again like we did last week randomly. I would not be surprised if we see a midstream pulling of the plug by Philadelphia here. And that's part of the reason that I think I would get in front of this and take a little bit of piece of the Giants right now. And you know what? Even if they don't pull the plug, the way the Eagles have been the last month, might not need them to pull the plug, and the Giants still might get there outright.
So I didn't do anything with the side. I do agree with you. I mean, Tyrod Taylor has been fantastic for the Giants. They should have probably put him in a little earlier. But I went over 41. I didn't realize it had moved up already so much. But Tyrod Taylor, 7 of 16 and 133 yards with a touchdown after he stepped in the first time these two played when Tommy DeVito got hurt. Last week, he went 27 of 41 for 319 yards and a touchdown. And then when you look at both defenses, we've got the number 28 and number 29th in the league in points allowed. Giants giving up 24.8 per game, and then the Eagles are giving up 25.1. So went over 41. I still even think that 43. But like you said, if they start pulling players, so maybe don't chase a bad number there. But
complex situation.
Very.
Because we don't know. I'm just going off of how reading into some comments this week and how, I would personally not play my guys at all today. I know it's technically an NFC East is on the line. If Dallas somehow gets upset by Washington and Philly wins, I just don't see that happening. Even though, again, Dallas would be the team to blow a game like that. But I just don't see that happening. And for Philly, I would just try to get everyone healthy. The defense is such in disarray with injuries and horrible play. I think I would just say, all right, guys, take the mental break and get ready for the game in Tampa, where the Eagles are still going to be a small favorite in that game against the Bucs or New Orleans or whoever wins the NFC South in a game that will probably be a terrible watch, to be honest, with everybody. All right, Niners and Rams, before we finish with the Commanders and the Cowboys. Niners with Sam Darnold, 4-point favorites against Carson Wentz and the Rams. Alex, I can't do anything here.
I don't either. I have nothing. Besides, I need to look at Puka Nakua's yards because he is trying to break the record here for most yards by a rookie. So I haven't looked at what they are posted at right now, but he needs how many?
It was a small number, wasn't it?
It is 29 yards.
Yeah.
And they did say, too, because we have a lot of players out, but they said Puka's going to play until he gets there. But so wait, I guess it would be way too high. We got to check.
So I will say this.
They're going to pull him after that 29.
So I will say this from a few reasons. Carson Wentz didn't get signed till midseason by the Rams. Sam Darnold's on a 1-year contract and a free agent next year. I know there's no incentive for the Niners. They've already clinched a 1 seed. The Rams, I'm a little surprised they actually aren't playing their guys because I do think there's a difference between being the 6 and the 7 where I'd much rather play Detroit than Dallas if I'm the Rams. The Rams already went to Dallas and got annihilated earlier in the year. Detroit, indoor game, Stafford's return, a lot of hoopla would go on with that. I think the Rams would handle that moment a little better than Detroit. But for Darnold and Wentz, these are two guys there is absolutely a case that if Sam Darnold plays well in this game, Sam Darnold could be signing elsewhere to be competing for a starting job next year.
Absolutely.
For Carson Wentz, if he looks okay in this game, it's all right. Maybe he can still play a little bit, and if he's not going to be a malcontent behind the starter, maybe we do want him in as a backup quarterback. So there is some things to play for both of these veteran quarterbacks that have had a downslide in their careers over the last few.
I completely agree, especially with Sam Darnold for the Niners. We've seen him jump in, and he looked very good. And even with the Niners' best players being out, they are
still
very
good.
Deep. So, yeah, it does make sense why they are still a 4-point favorite here.
I personally, if I were Darnold, I wouldn't leave San Francisco. If I were him, I would just give me some more money, back up Purdy, pretty cushy job, and make a bunch of money. All right, last game before we get out of here today. Dallas and Washington. 13, Alex. Cowboys laying it against the Commanders. 47 a total. You laying the lumber, you taking the points, you doing nothing.
So I did take the Cowboys first quarter.
Okay.
I may even jump in first half as well. I think you're getting like 7. I got some interesting trends for you. Dallas Cowboys have hit the first quarter money line in 13 of their last 21 games, but Dallas Cowboys have hit the second half money line in only 3 of their last 11. We're going to see that again here today, right? They're going to come out strong first quarter, first half, try and get a nice lead over the Commanders. Might be some room for a little backdoor cover for Washington, though. So I don't like that full 13. Did you do anything in this one, Jeff?
I really want to take a piece of the Commanders' money line. I just can't do it.
Oh,
I just don't see a way. And I'm gonna wait because I think we're gonna see 13.5. And if we get 13.5, maybe even we'll see 14. And I am gonna come back on Washington the other direction if it does go up. If there's any team that could blow a game like this, it's the Cowboys. And we saw it last year. They technically had stuff to play for last year in Week 18, and the Commanders destroyed them in that game. And when it's all said and done, for the Cowboys, if they're gonna make a Super Bowl this year, they're gonna have to win a road game in San Francisco.
yes.
And they have been arguably the best team in the NFL at home this year. And when they've gone on the road, they've looked like, all right, they're an okay football team, but they didn't look, other than the giant annihilation in Week 1, they've looked pretty pedestrian on the road. If you're Dallas, you need to show me something today. I know it's weird to say with a team that's the worst in the division and the second worst team in the NFL. Go out there and smack this team. But I'm not sure they're capable. So I'm going to wait. I'm going to see if I can get some more points with the Commanders on that one. All right. That's all the time we have. Final week of the NFL regular season. Get your bets in on the South Point app. Alex, good job. Sean, Andrew, good job in the back.
Thank you.
I'm Jeff Parles. We will see you all tomorrow at 3 o'clock
Yes.
in the afternoon. There's a national title to be won tomorrow in Houston, Washington, and Michigan. Previewing for a whole hour tomorrow on Sports by the Book. We'll see you then.